Hey, if you're using Planning Poker every sprint and it's starting to feel like a black hole for time, you're not alone. What if I told you there's a way to estimate faster with the same accuracy and a lot less faff? Today I'm going to break down two alternative techniques that Agile teams are using to get the backlog estimation done in half the time without compromising on quality. And I'll also be clear on when Planning Poker actually does make sense to use. All right, let's get into it. Firstly, a quick recap for those who need it. Planning Poker, or Strong Poker, is where teams sit down, hear a user story, and each person secretly picks a number that represents the relative effort. You reveal all your cards at the same time, and if there's a big gap, like someone says 3 and someone else says 13, you pause, you talk it through, and you vote again until you reach a consensus. Sounds good in theory. It's meant to avoid anchoring bias, encourage discussion, and build team understanding. But here's the issue. You may already know. Planning Poker works really well when you have 5 to 10 stories that need proper discussion. But when you're staring at a backlog of 30 or 40 or more items, it's painfully slow. I worked with teams where a single estimation session took over 2 hours. 2 hours just to assign numbers. And what happens after the first 5 or so stories? People get bored, they get zoned out, they just start voting just so they can move on. And that shared understanding that's supposed to happen just absolutely collapses. Let's be honest, how many of us actually check whether these numbers made sense after the sprint ends? Exactly. So let me show you what's faster, still accurate, and actually gets buy-in. First of all, the bucket system. Think of it like speed planning. You set up buckets labeled with effort values, usually Fibonacci numbers like 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and so on. Then the team places each story into a bucket based on how it compares to a reference item. So you might start with a story you all agree is a 5. Place that in a bucket and then size the others relative. And this process can be done silently in parallel. And once everyone's had a go, you do a quick group review and adjust if needed. That's it. You can estimate 50 stories in under half an hour using this method. And it's collaborative, and it's fast, and you get solid sizing. Another alternative is Affinity estimation. This one's a bit more visual. You lay out all the stories on a physical or a virtual board, and you draw a spectrum from small to large. Team members then, working by themselves, silently place stories along the line, thinking about how big they feel compared to one another. Once everyone's done, you review the layout together, you make any minor adjustments, and you map those clusters around your actual points, like again your Fibonacci series, 1s, 2s, and 5s, and so on. This works because people are really good at relative sizing, so you can avoid wasting time discussing every single item. And this is especially good for new teams or when you're doing a massive backlog grooming session. I know what you're thinking, you like story points, but are these two options actually accurate? Short answer is yes. There's a 2024 study that compared Planning Poker, the bucket system, and Affinity estimation. They found the accuracy was pretty much the same for all, but the bucket and Affinity systems were about twice as fast. But unless you need a detailed conversation on every story, you're just wasting time. Which brings me to the next point. When do you need to use Planning Poker versus when is it better to use one of the options I've just talked you through? So here's a rule of thumb. Planning Poker is used when you have fewer stories or really complex ones that need that deep discussion. Use the bucket system when your backlog is huge and you just want to move fast, and use the Affinity estimation when you want a really visual way of understanding and aligning understanding, particularly with new teams. Potentially, you can even combine them. You could bucket the big list and then poker the top 5. Hybrid approaches. I worked with a team in the past that was spending probably 90 minutes every other Friday just estimating stories. I introduced the bucket system. We did a 10-minute walkthrough and then sized 35 stories in under half an hour. So not only did they save an hour every sprint, but their sprint planning sessions got tighter too. And this meant that the team had more energy and better outcomes. They even started using the Affinity approach in backlog refinement, which really helped the junior devs get a better feel for sizing. This stuff works and it's scalable. But before we get too excited, quick heads up. These faster methods aren't magic. Don't use them for tiny, high-risk items that really do need that team discussion. And also, make sure that your team actually understands relative sizing, otherwise they'll just be bucketing stuff randomly. At the end of the sprint, and finally, always review estimates after the sprint. If you estimated 5, but it took 13 story points worth of effort, something's off. And that's a learning moment. If you ignore it, you'll just keep making that mistake. But if you reflect on it, understand why the discrepancy occurred, then you can make that change for the next time. The key thing to remember for yourself and for your team that estimation isn't about getting it right. It's about getting the team aligned. And not understanding that is what leads most Agile teams to spend way too much time on estimation, not enough on delivery. We sort of treat estimation as a ritual, but remember, it's just a tool. And the value is from the conversation and the alignment, not the number. So if your estimation process is burning people or just dragging out, change it. Try buckets, try Affinity, find out what works for your team. So I'm not saying planning poker is bad. It has its place, but it's not always the best tool for the job. So next time your backlog feels overwhelming, ditch the 2-hour poker session and try one of these faster methods. You'll get better alignment, high energy, and a lot more time to focus on actually building stuff. If you find this helpful, I put together a free PDF with a step-by-step guide for bucket systems and Affinity estimation, introducing how you could use them with your team. You'll find the download link in the description. And if you want more practical Agile content like this with zero fluff, hit subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.